What's good, everybody? It's me, Don Weeb, here, back with part 7 for What If Deku Had Chakra. If you guys are interested in the series and want more of it to come out, make sure to hit that like button, comment down below what you think of the series, as well as subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share this video for more. Now, let's just get right into this part for What If Deku Had Chakra. If you need a quick refresher of what happened last time, a link to part 6 will be in the description below. If not, then here we go. We are getting right into the part now. As Deku is getting ready to go on the trip to the summer training camp, he had thought about what Aizawa had told him. Last time they had met before summer had began, and now he was heading on his trip with his whole class of Class 1A to go and train. He had said that his power, his chakra, might be able to help others with their quirks. Deku would ponder this for a while as he's looking out the window on the side of the bus. As they get towards the forest, they suddenly would stop, as Deku feels his entire body shift forward as he falls flat-face first into the seat in front of him, looking up to see Bakugo in front of him turn around all pissed off. Damn Deku! Deku would look up at him surprised and say sorry as he leans back quickly. This is when Aizawa would climb up as he stands in the top of the bus at the front, and would say that they'll be stopping here as the beginning of their summer training camp would begin. They would all have questions as they get out of the bus when it begins to drive away. As they look around, they would suddenly see the 6 wild pussycats all standing around, as they had now been waiting for them for a little bit. Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Aizawa would say, as Deku watches as the wild pussycats would begin their actual training. They would then say if they all want to have dinner, then they'll need to get to the actual campsite across the forest before the end of the day. As soon as they say this and they then leave, this is when one of the wild pussycats, the blue one with the power to alter the ground, would put her paws on the ground as she begins to alter the ground beneath them. Suddenly, the entire cliffside begins to fall as the Class 1A students begin to fall towards the ground below. Deku, who quickly used his substitution jutsu to escape this, would be standing in the middle of the road as the rest of his students had fallen. Aizawa would tell Deku to get into the forest so he can make it there in time so he can actually eat dinner that day. Deku would say goodbye to the wild pussycats as well as Aizawa, as he would quickly pull up his actual hoodie's jumper as he pulls the hood up above his head. He jumps off into the forest below, seemingly disappearing into the shadows. As he falls into one of the trees below, he lands on it and uses chakra to stick to the wood with his feet. He begins jumping from tree to tree and walking all across them, as he sees his fellow students down below. Minato would be throwing his purple balls at all these seemingly strange creatures, as Deku would then see that beneath him there were all these strange mud-like creatures. Todoroki, Bakugo, and Sero were mostly dealing with these, while Kaminari and Jiro were standing in the back dealing with the leftovers behind. The rest of Class 1A were in between, dealing with any monsters they could while they moved forward slowly. Deku would say sorry as he decides to leave some assistance. He quickly creates 2 shadow clones which he leaves behind to help defend the rest of the class, as he continues moving forward throughout the forest. Deku would use his chakra to jump from tree to tree, having seemingly no danger. As the wild pussycats member would see that one of the classmates is actually moving incredibly fast. Aizawa would guess that it was most likely Deku, as his quirk is the most versatile one in the class. As Deku is jumping from tree to tree, he would eventually use another Shadow Clone Jutsu to grab onto the branch as he grabs its feet, swinging him high into the air. He sees the camp only maybe 300 meters away, and turns back to see that his classmates are very far behind, maybe an hour back. Deku would decide that he'll take a rest for a little bit as he sits down in the tree, waiting for the rest of his students to catch up a little bit. After a while, he would eventually stand up as he runs towards the campsite, jumping from tree to tree as he finally makes it, with seemingly no effort. As he makes it there first, he would run into Koda as well as the rest of the wild pussycats who would have already arrived. As Deku's the first to arrive, they would allow him to pick his dinner out first, as he gets to work on his plate. He sits down and begins eating, and by the time he finishes eating his dinner, the rest of the class would show up, with Bakugo being pissed off that Deku left them behind. Deku would quickly de-summon his shadow clones as they turned to poofs of smoke, saying he had left some protection behind. As Deku would yawn, saying he's gonna go to bed, the Wild Wild Pussycats would tell him, after they had already explained the information on the summer training camp to him, would tell him good night. Deku would head off to sleep as he goes towards the boys' dorms area that they'd be sleeping in for the camp. As Aizawa would be staying with the rest of the class, Deku would meditate for a while as he searches deep within himself and begins to feel all around him. Deku would eventually begin to feel a strange energy of nature energy, as he then quickly falls out of the state. Deku, who hasn't mastered Sage Mode yet, or even acquired it for that matter, doesn't exactly know what nature energy is. However, he can always go and ask, the Sage of Six Paths if he can go back to that cave where he originally discovered Chakra. But for now, he would leave it as an unsolved mystery. The next day would arrive and the training would begin. As Bakugo uses the training as he did in the original by sticking his hands in hot water to increase his sweat pore length as well as his explosion's radius. Deku would begin his training. Instead of doing physical training, he'd be meditating, as Deku's physical strength isn't exactly what makes his quirk stronger. He would have explained to Aizawa and the Wild Pussycats that his actual quirk is more of like he has a storage container of chakra, a certain amount that he can use, and by meditating he can increase the amount of chakra he can use, as well as it allows him to focus better on using his jutsu. As Deku would be sitting on the ground meditating, he would have Kaminari shooting electricity towards him, practicing his range and accuracy. As Deku practices moving out of the way without even opening his eyes, he would get used to sensing the energy that would come off of the attacks that Kaminari would be using. As one of the electricity is about to hit Deku right in the face, Deku would move out of the way immediately, rolling to the ground. Kaminari and Deku would practice this together, as they would be increasing both of their powers. The rest of the class would continuously do what they had done in the original with no big difference too much. After several days of this training, Class 1B would have gotten a little bit up to pace as they had begun their own training. Now, with Deku having mastered his evasion of Kaminari's attack, he would ask Bakugo if he would like to do some sparring with him. Bakugo, who would be annoyed that this jerk Deku, who was always so weak, would determine that he could get to fight him. Bakugo would agree, however, as he wants to smush his face into the ground. As soon as Bakugo charges towards Deku, Deku would smile as he thinks about how Bakugo's ability is similar to that of the ancient shinobi known as Deidara. As Bakugo blasts towards Deku, he tries to shoot an explosion directly into his face. Deku would slide underneath it as he bends his back backwards, using the Headhunter Jutsu as he goes underground. He grabs Bakugo's feet and pulls him under into the ground, where his head's only sticking out. As Deku pops back out of the ground, Bakugo would use his explosions to shoot himself out of the dirt, as he's now in the air. Bakugo would try to use his Howitzer Impact on Deku, but this doesn't work, as Deku easily uses a Substitution Jutsu to turn into a wood block, as Bakugo's attack hits into that instead of him. Deku would now be hiding in one of the further around trees that are surrounding where he and Bakugo are sparring. As Deku and Bakugo are looking for each other, precisely, Deku would finally catch an eye on Bakugo. He'd pull a shuriken out as he throws it towards Bakugo. Bakugo would hear something as he turns around and blasts the shuriken into metal shrapnel. What he didn't see, however, was there was a seal that was on the back of the shrapnel of the shuriken. As soon as this unseals, a shadow clone would pop out and punch Bakugo in the face, immediately poofing into dust. Bakugo, who would now be more pissed off, would now be looking around less analytically. Deku would take this opportunity to create a bullet jutsu. Wind bullet jutsu. As he forms the chakra in his hands, creating the bullet, he would then shoot it towards Bakugo as it hits him directly in the back of his shoulder. Bakugo would fall over as he tries to pull himself up. Before he can, however, Deku jumps out of the tree, leaping into the air as he begins rushing down towards Bakugo. Bakugo, this is my victory. Bakugo would then charge towards Deku as his explosion is about to meet Deku's Rasengan. As the Rasengan is about to clash into Bakugo's explosion, as the Rasengan pierces directly into Bakugo's explosion, a large burst of power and explosive hits both Bakugo and Deku as they go flying backwards, both of them landing in the ground. Bakugo would say he thinks that's enough for sparring for today, as Deku would agree, saying that was extremely powerful, and tells Bakugo that his explosions have gotten even better. Bakugo would make a sound of annoyance as he walks away, thinking that Deku's gotten stronger too. It just means he's gonna have to train even harder. The day had finally come. Now, the Wild Wild Pussycats was going to have the entire group perform an active courage test, as the groups would be formed as they walk into the forest. Suddenly, a portal would open, as the League of Villains would wander out. Koda in this timeline, or version, wouldn't have attacked Deku, as Deku, who is a bit quieter, wouldn't have really introduced himself to him. However, Deku did notice Koda was there and would have asked the Wild Wild Pussycats what had happened to him and if any of them were his parents. They would explain about what would have happened to Koda, as Deku is still a very kind-hearted person even now, and he would be worried about him. As the League of Villains had now entered the forest, with their new team of Dabi, as well as Muscular, and the other new villains having arrived, their first mission now being to capture Bakugo would have begun. As we now get into the forest, we would see that Deku would enter. As we get into the forest, we begin to see that blue flames begin to sprout, as Dabi's attack would commence. Eraserhead would notice as well, using his new Sharingan ability, which has an even greater range of sight, that something is happening within the forest. He would call back all the teams, saying that they are not to fight in any circumstances unless absolutely necessary. As the teams begin to retreat, the event of which would happen in the original would occur. With Deku making it back first, he would see that one of the Wild Wild Pussycats would be looking for where Koda went. He would have remembered that Koda had that special hiding place, and would tell her that he knows where he is, as Deku goes running off, using his Chakra abilities to sense where Koda's life energy is. As he says that he'll bring him right back, they would trust Deku to deal with the job, with Aizawa telling Deku to not get hurt. As Deku goes running through the forest, he'd eventually see where Koda is standing, with blood on his face. This would cause Deku to feel rage, as we see Muscular about to crush Koda beneath him. No way. Suddenly, Deku uses a substitution jutsu as he grabs Koda and substitutes out of the way, having Muscular crush a wood block beneath him. As now Deku stands there, his face looking towards Muscular, he tells him that he's going down. Quickly, he summons 4 shadow clones as they begin to swarm around Muscular poofing them instantly as he punches them into bits. Deku would then climb on top of Muscular, using his superior agility as well as his strength to stick onto Muscular as he punches into him, pulling out a kunai and slicing the villain. What are you doing here? Are you with the League of Villains? Muscular would laugh as he asks if he knows who this kid is as he points to a picture of Bakugo. Kachan? Deku would think, as he then gets pushed away from Muscular's attacks. Muscular's ability is able to seemingly grow muscles upon himself, Deku would think. He then decides he's going to have to go all out. He creates their Rasengan in his hand as he rushes forward at full speed, smashing their Rasengan directly into Muscular. As it causes a large spinning hole to appear in his muscles, Muscular pretends to scream in pain. Ugh! I gotcha there. Deku would be shocked as he gets pushed back, now having his right arm feel fractured from the attack. Damn it! He would think as Muscular is about to tower over him. Deku would quickly fall back as he uses his own technique. As Deku's sitting back, he just needs time. Time! Muscular would be distracted as water goes flying on top of him being held back only by Deku's shadow clones. As the water sprays him, Koda would look at Muscular and tell him to leave him alone, as Deku would look back to Koda. That's the time I needed. Deku would close his eyes as he sits perfectly still and breathes in. As Deku opens his eyes, we would see that Deku would have achieved the style of Wood-style Sage Mode, the same as Hashirama Senju. He would then tell Muscular, "You're down now. There's no one in this world who can defeat me in this style." As he then punches Muscular, he goes flying into the air, with Deku having increased his strength almost tenfold. What the hell? This kid just sent me flying, when only a moment ago that puny attack of his could do nothing to me. Koda would be sitting there crying, as he wonders if Deku's gonna be alright, his hero. Deku would turn back and tell Koda to run, and that he'll take care of this villain himself. He then quickly begins to form the style of hand seal. Wood style! Forest emergence jutsu! As he slams his hand down to the ground, the wood style forest would emerge as it begins piercing up into the heavens, stabbing itself into Muscular as he's now high up above, as a large tree is formed in the forest. Deku would begin rushing up the side, using his chakra as he sticks to his feet to it, running up as high as he can until eventually he would find him. Muscular. It's time to finish this, Deku would say as he charges his nature energy that he's accumulated into his Rasengan. He creates a ginormous Rasengan as he smashes it into Muscular, flying down beneath as they go flying into the ground, with Muscular being sent down to the cliff as it shatters into pieces, as rocks slide covering his body as he falls to his death. Deku would stand on the valley with blood on his arm as Sage Mode deactivates, him feeling completely drained of his chakra. He would roar out in victory as the light would shine upon him, before falling to the ground. Kota would shake him awake as Deku says that everything's gonna be alright. Deku would tie a splint quickly as he decides he doesn't have enough chakra to heal himself fast enough. He picks up his now friend Kota and would decide to get back to the camp as soon as possible before anything else can occur. Little did he know that from afar, a Kurogiri is watching what happened the entire time and is very curious about what quirk this boy has as he begins to go back to report it to his master, All for One. If you guys want to see the next part for What If Deku Had Chakra, make sure to hit the like button, comment down below what you think, as well as subscribe to the channel for more, as I've already said. If you guys like what Deku getting Sage Mode, Wood Style Sage Mode, I think it makes sense actually, as he has both sides of the abilities of the Sage's 6 Paths, and he has a ton of chakra considering he's the only one in this world who can use it. So I think it's reasonable that he would have enough the cells that he can use in order to access Wood Style. Anyway, I'll see all of you guys later. Bye.